Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of the Blackbird Grimoire. Welcome back to Pagan Tales. Today we are going to be talking about the divine pair of Loki and Sigyn. Now we will go in a little bit to their own personal mythology so you can better understand the context of these initial remarks. But as we go into this, if you're not already familiar with them, I would like to introduce this idea of seeing them as a union of the unstoppable force and the unmovable object. Loki, of course, being that unstoppable force, and Sigyn being the immovable object, coming together and instead of self destructing, finding a kind of union and harmony and a workable ebb and flow. Loki, of course, as we know, he is a god of change. He is a shapeshifter. He is a wielder of chaos. Whereas Sigyn is known as being a goddess of steadfastness, of loyalty and devotion. So if Loki is the hurricane, then Sigyn is the eye of that hurricane. And if Sigyn is the mountain, then Loki is the caldera underneath that mountain, full of the fire and the possibilities of change. So that's just to give you a little bit of a sense of who they are as they come together. Now, let's go back a little bit and address, first of all, who is Loki. Now, if you've already watched my series on the god Loki, then you already have my thoughts on that subject. But for the benefit of everyone else who has probably not gone through that particular playlist, let's just go through a few of the basic facts. To begin with, his father is called Bauti, probably butchering the pronunciation, but I'm an English speaker, not a speaker of Old Norse, so we're just going to have to cope. Now, Bauti, of course, was a Jotun, a giant. His mother was Laufey, who was known as a goddess. He's said to have the siblings of Helblindi and Bleister. His first wife was Angerboda, and with her, he had the following children: Fenrir, who of course is the gigantic wolf, best known for biting off Tyr's hand when, the gods essentially tricked him into being tied up because they were getting a bit worried about his size. Then we have Jormungandr, who of course is the world serpent, and then Hel, or sometimes as she is referred to as Hela, who is the ruler over the dead in Helheim. Now, with his second wife, Sigyn, he had two children, either called Narfi, Nari, and then Vali. And then Loki, of course, was the mother of Sleipnir by the stallion Svadilfari. Yeah, that's all I can get. And if you want to know how that hasn't happened, I will refer you to the tale of the horse incident, otherwise known as the building of the walls of Asgard, and that'll let you know just exactly how that came about and why. Back to the general identity of Loki. He of course is Odin's blood brother, possibly a form of that his name is also a form of Loder, who was named as a brother of Odin and as one of the three creator gods. So that complicates that family tree just a little bit. He's also possibly Logi, who is an ancient hearth deity. This is highly controversial. People reject it for a wide spectrum of reasons. I include the possibility because it is still a subject of discussion, and it seems that in I believe he was Swedish. That particular YouTuber, he did equate Loki and Logi. Other people in the Norse community, they outright reject that. And my advice, as always, is just, if you're interested, do your own research, draw your own conclusions, hear all sides of the argument, and just give it a thought. Another name for Loki is Lopter, and the meaning of his name is tangled knots and spider webs. And so, of course, he has a strong association with webs. Sometimes I like to associate the symbol of the web of the weird, just because it seems like he's tap dancing on all of those particular threads of fate. Sacred animal to Loki is spiders. He's associated with the elements of air and fire. One for the air because of his extraordinary ability to communicate, and then with fire, he was said to have born with a lightning strike. For Bati, is his name means striker, and then Laufey, her name has to do with dried leaves, and so having that lightning strike connect with the leaves, and his Loki's whole conception to be a conception of fire. It seems pretty obvious to me that whether or not Loki is Loki or anything else like that, that there is still a very strong fire association with them. And ultimately, if we want to ask who Loki is a catalyst. He makes things happen. Now, who is Sigyn? Her parents, very debatable. Most say that they don't really know, and that's more so where the direction that I lean. But I did find one controverting idea out there from Vikinger.org. They stated on their website that she is the daughter of Volunder and Sol. Now, Volunder was also called Wayland the Smith, and Sol, or Suna, she's the goddess who carries the sun across the sky in her chariot. It's not sure if Sigyn has siblings, but her meaning of her name is Victoria's girlfriend. And some of her kennings associated with her are Strength of the Mountain and Breaker of Chains, which is pretty significant. She's most famous for holding a bowl over Loki's head to protect him from dripping snake venom when he was bound in the cave. And it is also interesting that as he was bound with chains that he could not himself break, and one of her monikers is the Breaker of Chains. It just seems to me that when he does in the myth finally break free, I really believe within my soul that his wife was right there helping him. Her sacred animal are red foxes, and she's associated with the elements of earth and water. The earth, of course, with being associated with being the strength of the mountains. Mountains are rock, and rock, of course, is earth. And with water, that has to do with grief and tears. If you're familiar with the story of how Loki came to be bound in the cave, what happened with his sons with Sigyn's and everything else, you will know why Sigyn was associated with tears, and of course, thereby with the element of water. And if we ask who is Sigyn, she is the nurturer. So let's talk about their equilibrium, because despite the lack of details in the lore, we can surmise a great deal about Loki and Sigyn just based upon their personal characteristics. The impulses of their natures are very much opposite, but they are united in the times of greatest crisis, and that denotes common values, goals, and a common general worldview. And that, of course, creates a sustainable partnership. It is possible that Loki and Sigyn both curb each other's extremes. Now, we hear people talk about Loki's extremes often enough, and it seems to be mostly overlooked, or at least maybe people haven't connected that dot, that perhaps Sigyn was a bit extreme in her own right, that perhaps her fidelity and strength is sometimes, without Loki's influence, going to be a rather extreme degree of stubbornness for its own sake, just being obstinate because she doesn't want to change. And whenever I think of their relationship together, I see both of them just kind of polishing off the other's rough edges. Because they do provide each other with what they lack. Loki, of course, needs greater stability. Sigyn needs greater adaptability, and so they give that to each other. And as they do this, I see Loki and Sigyn moving in the same direction, almost orbiting each other like twin planets, but always moving forward together. Now, the part in traditional wedding vows of for better or for worse. Adversity, regardless of the cause, that really does test a marriage, any marriage, every marriage, whether it's human or divine. And in order for the relationship to survive, both parties have to make choices to where they turn towards each other and face the challenge as a team, rather than letting it come between them, rip them apart, or them operating independently of the other and perhaps at cross purposes. Now, when they are coming together as a team, that requires both parties allowing themselves and their partner to use their individual strengths to pursue that larger goal, that same goal, and working in concert together. So some marital lessons that I think we can take from Loki and Sigyn is that differences do not equate incompatibility if people work together. And a strong personality requires another equally strong personality for the sake of balance. Opposites do attract, provided that people appreciate those differences and they find peace within them, or they even say, it is such a relief that my partner has this characteristic because they have this particular strength in such abundance. They can take care of aspects of life where that particular trait is really called for, and I don't have to go so far outside of myself to try to meet that challenge. I can work with someone who does this naturally, and vice versa. There's a lot to be said for being the counterbalance of your spouse. And last thing is that hard times are not a reason to abandon each other. And it's very sad the way sometimes people do throw away their marriages when there's a bump in the road, or when there's financial difficulties, or if it isn't for reasons that are involving, infidelity or abuse, or things that really are that serious, things that absolutely break that bonds, and that are contrary to the vows of marriage. Just going through a hard time, that doesn't necessarily mean that a relationship is doomed. It just means that it's a test. And unfortunately, we have so many people who don't meet that test. But then we have a lot of people who come together for very frivolous reasons. They don't really take relationships seriously, much less marriage seriously. And they're so busy trying to protect themselves from potential harm or someone abandoning them and things of that nature, that they never quite learn the trick of working with someone, of saying, okay, we're in this, but we're in this together, and we're going to face this together. I think Loki and Sigyn actually have a great deal to teach us about marriage in this day and age. So that's at least what I got out of them. I'd be very curious about your own impressions of this divine couple in the comments below, or if you prefer, you can email me at brigantiablackbird@protonmail.com, and I'd be happy to have a lengthier discussion with you there. But I think that will do it for now. Next week, we will be talking about Jupiter and Juno. It is a train wreck, so brace yourselves, dears. We will be getting into that, but that's it for today. See you guys next time. Bye.